Imagine being a teenager, thrust into the dazzling lights of reality TV. Overnight, you become famous. Your face on magazine covers, thousands of followers, your name recognized by strangers on the street. And for a moment, you have everything that you've ever dreamed of: attention, validation, and endless opportunities. But what happens when those lights turn off? When the cameras move on to someone newer, younger, brighter? When your worth, once measured by likes, follows, and fleeting fame, suddenly vanishes, leaving you grasping desperately for something, anything to hold on to. But now imagine your name is in the headlines for another reason: murder. This story is about the hidden darkness that follows when the spotlight fades, a descent into obsession, despair, and unimaginable violence. How does someone that seems so charming and beautiful become known as a disturbing killer? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Darklivity. I'm your host, Kimbyrleigha, and I'm here with my better half, my darling husband, Jonathan.
Hi. Darklivity is the dark downward slope into the degradation of the human mind and the consequences that such darkness brings to light.
Before we begin, I also just wanted to shout out True Crime Society, Olivia and Stephanie. They shouted us out on their podcast a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to tell you they're a great team. They do really great true crime stories, and I will link everything below so you can get to know them. I just wanted to make sure that I gave them a couple seconds. I thought about them because they're based in Australia, and so is our case for today. Now, today is another episode in our new series that we've been calling Real-Time True Crime. And these are usually 3 mini deep dives into a few new cases. But this one, I just started going really deep in. So we're just going to be talking about one case today. I started researching and I just could not stop. I've seen some surface level information about this case, but wow, uncovering everything that we did, we were in shock. But I also feel like we have a lot of answers.
This might be a case you've heard about, or it could be completely new to you, but there will be updates, so don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. And just a heads up, this case is still ongoing. Everything in this video is alleged, and all the information comes from various online news sources.
That's right, it's alleged, but there is a lot of certainty surrounding the alleged killer. It starts with one girl's dream: to become famous. Her name is Tamika Sue-Ann Rose Chesser. She was born on September 13th of 1990. She's one of 7 children, and her mom, Helen, got her into modeling as a baby. Then Tamika, whose nickname is Moo, moved on to tween beauty pageants. She was born and raised in the town of Mackay in Queensland, Australia, and she decided to audition for the popular reality TV show in 2010 called Beauty and the Geek. But now she's in jail for murder. How? Well, we are going to tell you.
Beauty and the Geek started out as a US show before making its way over to other countries, including Australia. The whole premise was deliberately over-the-top pairing stereotypically attractive women known as the beauties with stereotypically nerdy men, the geeks, in what producers described as a social experiment.
A scripted one at that, because reality TV is not reality at all. That's actually how I started living in California. I worked for a production company that did reality TV shows, and I can tell you firsthand, they're made up. Because I don't want to burst your bubble, but these producers are not going to just put anything out there. They have to have the perfect balance of intrigue and mystery and romance and drama, and of course, the perfect characters for all of those roles. So they are essentially casted for a reason. What do you think Tamika was casted for?
Well, she's been described as having long platinum hair, lean legs, and, well, bountiful bosoms.
Exactly. So there you go. Dare I say the ditzy blonde. And that's exactly what the 19-year-old was known for on the show. And she was being introduced for the first time. And she said her most favorite feature about herself, though, was her smile. She does have a big, bright, white smile.
At the time, she had been working as a cocktail waitress, as well as doing bikini modeling and working at a salon as a beautician.
That was the word that she used, and her title, she said she was a beautician doing waxing and massages, and her job was to make people feel more beautiful. Once she made it on the show, stunning girls and these genius guys live together in this mansion, and they team up as they compete in hilarious and heartwarming challenges to test their intellect and social skills. That is how IMDb described the show.
The guys were meant to show the women that there's more to life than just looking pretty. It was about being intelligent and learning new things. But on the flip side, the beauties were supposed to help the geeks improve their social skills.
It was so contrived. I mean, we're going to show you some clips, but the greatest transformation wins them $100,000. So it's not for nothing that someone goes on a show like this. But the real reason that people like Tamika do it is because they know it can catapult them into bigger opportunities and fame.
But when the guys are introduced on the show, they make their appearance riding on little motorized scooters.
And they look so funny on purpose. It's totally over the top. And then when the girls pull up, they're in these nice cars. Each one of them step out in these beautiful dresses, and then they get interviewed. Tamika said she's known for being able to make up really realistic animal noises.
I'm the best person at making animal noises. And a dolphin.
She actually reminded me so much of Anna Nicole Smith, and I kind of have an affinity for her.
As the show aired, each contestant became somewhat of a household name. In Australia, more than 1.2 million viewers tuned in every week.
And this was before social media got as big as it is now. It was just starting out, and TV shows were still the thing you did with your friends on the weeknights or the weekends. You got together with your girls, watched a show like this, rooted for your favorite contestant. And they start in this beautiful garden with all the girls sitting in chairs watching the guys come out on a conveyor belt. And they have to tell them what makes them so great. One's an astrophysicist, another one is a dinosaur fossil expert. I think some of these were made up. And one's double majoring, another is a Boy Scout.
Just like bidding on antiques at an auction, each girl would hold up a paddle to show whether or not she wanted to pair with a particular guy. And the whole point was to transform him from geek into someone dateable.
Tamika chose Thomas, a guy that did a really goofy dance. He almost fell in a Hawaiian shirt. And that was his thing. Like, he collected Hawaiian shirts. They team up and then they vote for each challenge. Most of them are silly, like the guys making girls bathing suits. And this goes on until each one is eliminated. While the show was on TV for that season, Tamika was being talked about on entertainment websites. She was being featured in the commercials for the show and actually made it all the way to the finals. Thomas described her as kind and caring, teaching him how to take better care of himself, work out, and he said she was always talking. She never shut up, but that he liked it because it made up for his awkwardness and shyness. He actually said he thought he loved her, and they had just met. So she had that effect on men. She was very charismatic.
But this was all for show.
That's right. I mean, we can't possibly know someone from TV, but you can feel like you truly know them. You see them smiling, laughing, maybe even tearing up and showing some emotions, and suddenly it feels personal. I think her first big failure in her career, and probably relying on men, so to speak, was when she and her partner, Thomas, were in the final round. And all they had to do was simply answer 2 questions about each other as they got to know each other throughout the weeks. Thomas couldn't even get the first one right. He was supposed to fill in the blank when she said, what makes her beauty is her smile, her personality, and it was supposed to be her curvaceous figure, but he said pretty dresses. It was so obvious, and she was devastated.
What makes me a beauty is my big smile, my personality, and
A, my IQ, B, my curvaceous figure, or C, my pretty dresses.
curvaceous figure.
I would have to say C, pretty dresses.
No. My curvaceous figure.
But she had a chance to redeem herself, but she couldn't name 3 of his 6 pets. So they lost. But still, not everything was a loss. Tamika kept riding the wave of her notoriety after the show ended. And before long, she was landing all kinds of gigs.
Right. Because even though she didn't make it in the end, the 19-year-old was instantly famous. She was catapulted into the spotlight, given tons of attention, modeling jobs, and paid opportunities. And life was good. It was exactly what she dreamed of. And the show opened that door for her. But at age 19, a person's identity is still forming, making them especially vulnerable psychologically. When they're suddenly thrust into the spotlight, the immediate effects can be very euphoric.
Right, there's the instant gratification, the followers skyrocketing, fans pouring on constant praise, and it creates this dopamine-fueled feedback loop that's pretty hard to step away from. Their self-worth starts to become defined by popularity, and they begin equating their value as a person with the attention they're getting, building this identity that's rooted entirely in external validation.
And then there's the lack of boundaries and reality. Young individuals may lack emotional maturity to separate their on-screen persona from their true identity. The lines between reality and their persona start to get blurred. They become so intertwined, and without the popularity, a person can feel like they don't have a purpose or an identity at all. But for the next few years, Tamika remained popular, doing magazine shoots, interviews, celebrity appearances, and in 2010, she appeared in the men's magazine Ralph and did an interview where she was asked some very ridiculous questions, if I do say so myself, very male-driven, including whether she ever fantasized about Santa Claus, to which she answered no, even though she thought beards on men were attractive.
She was also asked if she'd ever do more X-rated content for her fans. She said no, she'd leave that to the professionals, but she did mention that she wouldn't mind directing one. And when asked about her ideal night out, she said it would be going to a pub with all of her girlfriends, having drinks, dancing, having a few more drinks, then heading to the beach, and then making her way home.
She created her own website as well, TamikaChesser.com, to promote herself and get more gigs. Like her appearance as a model and promo girl for the Queensland Mining and Engineering exhibition. For work like this, she earned $30 an hour, and it mostly consisted of her looking pretty, passing out brochures and bags while chatting to male visitors that came to the booth. I mean, it makes sense. They want more men to come learn about mining and engineering, so they're going to put a really hot chick at the booth.
By the end of 2010, she made it to the Nationals for the Best Model Australia competition, as well as the Ralph Australian Swimsuit Model of the Year. She said it was so exciting to see all these photo shoots being released and to be able to travel all over the country. She was getting a lot of work.
She also mentioned that she thought it was because she was more mature now, even though it had only been maybe 6 months to a year after the show ended.
Right. She talked about what a wonderful experience it had been, and she talked about her next big move. She was becoming a DJ. She wanted to move to Melbourne, where she said the music scene was huge and new DJs were in demand, so there would be more opportunities for her there. But for now, she was appearing in the Lynx calendar and attending Tambourine Mountain College.
I wasn't able to find out what her major was or if this was just like an associate's kind of degree or the equivalent in Australia, but she said she wasn't going to let viewers' perceptions of her role on Beauty and the Geek, who might assume that she was a bit ditzy, bother her. She would be seen riding around town on her bright pink bicycle. She was asked whether it made her upset that she was perceived as a blonde bimbo, and she said no. She also got criticism for doing that promo work. There were actually a lot of complaints from people who went to certain conventions like that engineering one, and they told the people putting on the show that these women were a distraction. But she said, quote, "I haven't seen any negativity, but if someone said anything to my face, I would be hurt. Everyone has an opinion. You can't criticize other people just for doing their job," end quote. And in her defense, she mentioned that the girls that were doing the promos dressed very tastefully. There were no bikinis, and her company that put her there was very professional. She added, quote, "I have quite a large bosom, and I always wear my shirts a little open, so that's how I wore the shirt. I'm young, and I like to wear my tops like that," end quote.
At this point, she mentioned that she hoped to build her career in television and eventually open a beauty salon back in her hometown of Mackay. She admitted that when it comes to advertising and promotions, sex sells, saying, "It's the generation we live in. Look at all the music clips and movies."
Well, she did not go on to have a TV career, but she did make headlines the following year in 2011 when she was 20 years old, and it wasn't positive. It was in regard to what she referred to as a wrongful arrest. It happened on April 26th in Surfer's Paradise while she was out drinking with some of her girlfriends. She was at the Orchid Avenue shop front trying to get a call from her friend so she can get a ride home, and she said she was confronted by 3 police officers who she said accused her of being drunk in public. She said, quote, "The next minute I know, they're saying, 'You're going to have to come with us.' I said, 'I haven't done anything wrong. I know my rights.' I wasn't going to go with them, and they didn't like that, and things got a bit nasty after that, end quote.
And by nasty, she means physical, as in she got physically violent with a police officer.
Well, she said that one of them accused her of dressing like a slut and told her to shut up.
And she said that she snapped, that they twisted her arm while trying to arrest her, then they forced her head into the ground and shoved it down.
Yeah, that was according to her, though. She said she begged them to stop, that they didn't have to use such violence, that she wasn't going to hurt anyone, and that it was scary and humiliating. She claimed she was tipsy, but not drunk, and she was angry and upset about her arrest and being told to shut up. And of course, that her dress was too short.
She said she didn't know it was against the law to wear a short dress, and that she was, of course, very offended by that.
I remember the officer saying something about my dress, that it was too short.
As for what she did next, though, her excuse was, I was angry, I was upset, I was scared, and I slapped the police officer, saying that's how some people react when they're so emotionally upset. I know if I could take it back, I would. Up until then, I hadn't done anything wrong. Yikes. Yeah. Up until then, she might not have done anything wrong, but I don't think it's right to use physical violence. However, she apparently was resisting arrest. So they're allowed to use force in those situations. And she was most likely upset that she wasn't being treated as important as she felt she was at this point. No doubt she was used to being on a pedestal, feeling more entitled, but she wasn't above the law.
So she spent the night in a Southport jail cell and was charged with assaulting police, resisting arrest, and public drunkenness. And this marked the beginning of her downward spiral. Fame as her identity wasn't going to last, and she had to face the reality that she was now just a normal citizen.
We like to discuss the psychology around a spiral like this. And in this case, ongoing admiration can inflate someone's ego. They may develop entitlement and even narcissistic traits, believing they're inherently special or superior. And there's also a lot of anxiety and pressure. The constant pressure to remain relevant can trigger insecurity and intense fear of losing the spotlight. Therefore, their self-esteem becomes fragile, hinging entirely on public approval and external validation.
Sadly, she was learning that she wasn't special and she had to go to court. She had to hire attorneys, but instead of following the rules, she chose not to show up, and a warrant was issued for her arrest.
She probably thought it would just go away if she ignored it, and that's pretty ironic. There is a clip from one of the Beauty and the Geek episodes where she was supposed to be a pretend attorney and be arguing about the negative effects that Hollywood has on society. It was a fake mock trial in front of a fake judge, but she stumbled through the entire thing and actually started making an argument for Hollywood. Whether she was playing into a role, we will never know.
Today I am representing myself for does Hollywood have an effect on this world?
How does Hollywood affect those people?
A lot of people in the society of our world and generation of the 21st century believes that Hollywood... The judge just looked at me very, very confused. And Hollywood is a great place to... I'm so going for it, am I? I was just going against.
And now she was facing a real judge.
The court received an email from Tamika on the very day that she was supposed to appear. She said, I had to relocate to Melbourne and I just wanted to either plead guilty to the charges or have the case transferred somewhere closer to her.
Wow, she thought that they were going to be like, oh yeah, we'll just all come to you.
And of course, that was denied by the court and they told her to appear or go to jail.
So that same day, she was forced to hire attorneys and they showed up on her behalf. And in the end, she was fined $800 for punching an officer, not slapping him, but they called it punching, and also being drunk in public. And it ended there, sort of, because she did make a complaint to the Crime and Misconduct Commission, claiming that her lawyers obtained newly released security footage that showed up to 8 police officers had bullied and provoked her into using force against them. She stated, quote, I could still communicate, I could still see, I could still think right, and I could still walk. That to me is not intoxicated. That to me is not drunk, end quote. I just think it's interesting that she's correlating those things with being drunk when we all know it's usually a limit. You know, your intoxication, you blow into something and it will tell you your level. So I just think that she's like, no, I could still think. Well, how do we know? We can't get into your mind.
You still think even if you're drunk.
Right. I just thought it was funny because she talked about how mature she was, but that's a pretty immature statement, especially to a court.
She was very confused about why they were arresting her, and so she just started walking away because she felt that she didn't need to be there. And when an officer grabbed her arm, she told him to get off me. She also claimed that she had a reason for not showing up in court. She couldn't afford it.
It doesn't seem like anything came of that complaint. And the same could be said about her career. Going forward, year after year, her fame was fading, but she was still trying to hold on. And speaking of holding on, the Chesser family experienced a tragedy and then a miracle, according to Tamika's mom, Helen. In October of 2012, Tamika's 24-year-old brother, Mitchell Carter, was in a near-fatal car accident. He was left in the middle of the road for more than 2 hours after being thrown from his vehicle. Finally, at 2:30 in the morning, a driver passing by noticed him and called for help. This, of course, would be a big deal for any mother, but Helen had already lost a son, and she couldn't imagine having to bury another child. So she spent 8 weeks by Mitchell's side, living out of her car so she could be at the hospital.
The doctors told Helen and Mitchell's father, David Carter, that he only had a 30% chance of surviving. He had suffered extremely severe injuries, including major head trauma, and it was reported that the doctors had to cut him ear to ear and remove a section of his skull for emergency surgery. He was incredibly lucky. After a week in a coma, he woke up, and just 2 weeks later, he was able to sit up. He went on to make a full recovery, which Helen called a miracle, and she expressed her gratitude to the first responders and doctors who saved his life.
It's sad that tragedy wasn't new to this family. She lost a son, almost lost a second one, and of course, we wouldn't be talking about Tamika if she wasn't involved in a terrible tragedy as well. But tragically, her modeling career was fizzling. By 2015, she was just another Instagram model, posting pictures in lingerie and doing mostly censored adult content with captions like, "If you're wondering, the answer is yes, my milkshake does bring all the boys to the yard." And to be fair, I and all of my friends at this time, when we were like 19, I recall dressing up like a schoolgirl, but it was for Halloween, and taking pictures like this and showing off our bodies because you're young. You don't really realize the ramifications of the future, and getting attention is fun sometimes. But what was her backup plan?
I mean, it's all fun and games, but what are you going to do when all of that fades away?
I can tell you, many people take sexy photos on Instagram and social media, and they're not making enough money to sustain them financially, but they're just waiting for their next big break.
And a lot of her Instagram posts, at least from the looks of it, seemed like she was doing a lot of things for trade, where a model would work for a photographer and the photo shoot is done for free. In return, the model gets the photos and the photographer gets a model that they could feature in their portfolio.
Oh, I remember those days of Model Mayhem. Do you remember that website?
Oh, yeah.
And you would do trades. And Tamika also was changing her look at this point. I guess she might have been sick of being the ditzy blonde. She was now a brunette and possibly had some maybe additional enhancement onto her chest because it looked significantly larger. She was still doing promo work, but now for Playboy and alcohol companies. She also got a new puppy, a little chihuahua that she named Prince. But that same year, her posts on Instagram just stopped. So had her modeling career run its course? Well, kind of. First, she tried to become a makeup artist and she started a page called Unreal Beauty, but that didn't pan out. So she rebranded herself as Tamika Chesser and she started doing what she said she never would, nude modeling, which eventually turned into her having an OnlyFans. She was still posting on Facebook though. She wasn't posting anywhere else, but just OnlyFans and Facebook. Still talking about what she was doing, where she was going, like a trip to Vegas. She even showed off some of the things she bought on her trip. And this will become significant later, including this Elvis t-shirt. She was apparently a big fan.
It also seemed like she went through a breakup that year. She started posting broken heart emojis and sharing things like one post that read, "Many relationships end because once the person has you, they stop doing the wonderful things it took to get you," which she captioned, "So true, 100%.
It can be true. People get complacent, they get lazy, they fall into routine, and the novelty wears off, which is ironic because that was what was kind of happening in her own modeling career. The novelty of her being this Beauty and the Geek contestant had run its course by now. She even posted that she was feeling broken. And yes, it could have been from a broken heart, but it could also have been from being a broken person. Because like you said, once fame dissipates, the person can face a devastating identity crisis. Without fame, they're uncertain who they are, their purpose, or their personal value. And after that, Tamika didn't post anymore on Facebook until 2021. So from 2015 to 2021. And when she finally did come back on December 23rd, she posted a very attention-grabbing photo of herself in a red dress and wrote, "When you fail, try again. Finally back into my Facebook account after being locked out. After so many attempts, Facebook gave me access. So happy." But she didn't end up posting again until 2022.
So another whole year.
A whole year. And when she did post, it was mostly modeling shots, one after the other. And there is something I've noticed that's lacking when I see this with a lot of people who maybe are going through depression, they're withdrawing from society because of the way maybe they feel inside, having the identity crisis. They don't post, and I'm putting this in air quotes, normal pictures.
Right, like photos with friends, photos with your dog and family.
Exactly. It's selfie after selfie, modeling picture, maybe a skyline or a sunset in between. But there just seems to be like a lack of a rounded personality.
Yeah, I've seen that before. It seems very self-centered, self-driven. But her brother Mitch and her stepdad David did try to cheer her up. They asked her to hang out and left comments on her photos. She even posted a video with her niece and nephew, which we'll play for you now.
Let's stop. I don't have bunny. Okay, is that what you think they are? They bunny ears? Okay. Yeah, look, no you do. Oh! I'll have some. Oh!
I mean, she does seem normal and happy. Seems, though.
Right, she's smiling, laughing, having fun with the kids, and she posted a lot of videos and photos of her dog, Cola. She had lost Prince, he sadly passed away, but she got 2 new dogs, a little chocolate-colored Chihuahua and another small pug mix. She even made her Instagram for Cola, but only got around to posting about 7 times before giving up on it.
Yeah, we never try to diagnose anyone in these videos. I'm not qualified. He's not qualified. I do have an undergraduate degree in psychology, but I do have experience with being close to individuals that are struggling with mental health. And I couldn't help but feel like she had some borderline tendencies, meaning borderline personality disorder, tendencies of that, and probably some bipolar tendencies as well. Obviously, we don't know her. We're seeing what we're seeing online. We don't know the full scope of who she really was, but these are just some things that I can gather. And one of them is her ever evolving and changing and indecisiveness of her identity. That's huge. She changes her name. She changes her look, and she will start something, but never finish it. Those can just be natural things while we're trying things out and progressing through life. But I really do feel like with her, it's more of a mental health issue than just being indecisive about her career.
In 2023, she was going through another transformation, one that slowly started to take on a bit more of a spiritual tone. It began with a post that read, "The courage it takes to leave behind what's not for you anymore is the same courage that will help you find your way to what is." And like Kimbyr said, it's as though that she's searching for an identity.
It is. It's not like she's, transforming. It's like she is trying to find an identity. It's like, what can I latch onto? What do I feel fits me? And once again, this reminds me of Hannah Kobayashi again, because you see in her Instagram before she went missing, it was all these like really spiritual posts and people were talking about twin flame. That's a common theme when someone's going through some mental health issues. If people don't have emotional resilience, social support, or some psychological guidance, the risk of mental health spiraling is higher. Her identity and self-worth probably became deeply tied to that feeling of validation that she used to receive when she had that brief celebrity period.
In that same year, she shared a heartbreaking post about her grandparents' house in her hometown. The government was buying it out to fill the area with water. She wrote about all the unforgettable memories she had there and how sad it was to say goodbye.
She also mentioned that her father and the children had no say in it at all, that the government just seized it, saying, quote, "Sell out or get out," only to have them fill the land in with water. Some land isn't for sale. No money in the world can buy something so priceless. I learned how to swim here when I was 6 at the backyard Nana taught me, and not to mention all the other personal times. I was hoping this property would be around to see the day I have children of my own. I had hoped I would walk them through the whole property and talk about special, funny, memorable Nana Poppy moments and why us children would love visiting them on the property and all the precious memories the house and land holds from our generations. But that won't stop me though. If one day I am, however, blessed enough to have a child of my own or even my nieces and nephews. Come on, kids, we're going diving. I might want to start taking up scuba diving lessons. Any recommendations? End quote. And that was clever since it would be underwater. So I had to kind of chuckle at that and laugh. I was like, she's kind of funny. This was the only normal, or I should say insightful post that she had written in years.
By June 23rd, she had posted a graphic that said, "Offline is my peace of mind." But that didn't last. Just a couple of weeks later, she was posting pictures of herself on a beach in a blue wig, holding a palm branch in one hand and a beverage in the other.
And some of her friends commented and they were like, what's with the branch? It was just the randomness of all of it and even the way she looked.
And this was the month when things really started to shift. Like Kimbyr mentioned about an identity crisis, wearing a wig on its own isn't a big deal, but it felt like Tamika wanted to change, to step away from using the internet for validation. Yet she kept coming back to the only thing that she knew.
That's what I felt it was. It was like it's stepping away only to realize, wait, what do I do? Who am I? And then she comes back and she tries to like look different and kind of reinvent herself again and again. And it would happen in a short time period too. One change, then back, and then another change again.
And after that, all she posted was graphic after graphic.
And when we say graphic, we're showing it on the screen. I don't know. It's like a meme. I don't know what you would call it. It's just like an
image.
Picture, an image. And sure, there were some photos of herself and her dogs peppered in here and there. But this was the most she had ever posted, these quotes and things like that instead of photos of herself. So much that it looked like someone else's Facebook altogether.
It started with a post that said, "My energy flows where the good things grow," followed by another that read, "A lion will never eat grass, no matter how hungry he is. Be like a lion. Never lower your standards because someone expects that from you."
This is when she started posting more spiritual things as well. And they got more and more deep, elusive, vague as time went on. There were a lot of those type of posts that month, including a caption that she wrote that read, quote, "There is no other like you, maybe similar, but still not you. Yes, we are each unique and amazing in our own special way. And when we decide to be ourselves, we shine brighter without even knowing it. There will always be someone better off than you and someone less fortunate than you. So make do with what you have to work with, because the only competition you have is the person you were yesterday. My goal is to become the best version of myself that I can be. I'm not there yet, but every day I get a little closer." End quote. So it still really feels like she's trying to find herself. But then boom, 2024 was all about posting very provocative photos, again, even more provocative ones, with captions like, "You can't handle this."
And by June, it gets weirder. Her Facebook posts suddenly take a turn into hieroglyphics.
No, really, like post after post, stones with hieroglyphics carved into them with no context and no captions, followed by a bunch of Greek mythology and posts that have no reference to anything, just picture of ethereal things. And finally, she says, "Everything is written in the stars." Oh boy, when I saw that, because I've seen this in other cases we've done even, where it just kind of starts veering off into this other place. Someone actually commented, "I hope you're okay." And I don't think she was. That saying is rooted in ancient astrology. It signifies destiny or fate, but it suggests that events are predetermined and that they're beyond human control. And it seems like she was losing control.
When her friend asked if she was okay, it was actually in response to one of the longest captions that she had written on her Facebook in a very long time, maybe ever. We do want to read it because we think it's important, but we'll need to break it up since it is pretty long.
We're definitely going to read this.
So it starts out, quote, "Our Creator, our Father, and our Mother Nature, our Earth are crying out to all of us. What do you think your ancestors would say in regards to the life you're currently living? Would they be proud? More so, are you proud of the man, woman you've grown to be? Would they even recognize you and the world we live in today? Do you recognize yourself any more when you look in the mirror? What do you see behind the makeup, behind the false lashes, behind the haircut or perfectly groomed beard, behind the Botox? Is the flesh you reside in of relevance?
She goes on to ask, quote, does it make you the person you are? Would society treat you differently if you look different? What would the 8-year-old you think? How differently did your life pan out for you? Have you reached your dreams? Did you achieve your goals? Did you succeed? If you failed, how many times have you got back up? Do you feel defeated by life? What's your purpose? Why do you wake up in the morning? What's your reason and drive? If you're genuinely unsure of happiness and you second guess your life path that you're currently living and these questions have you contemplating, why not make that small step to making a difference to your life? You still have time. The only thing stopping us is ourselves at the end of the day.
And then she goes on to say, we as humans have forgotten the meaning of life and what it is to be genuinely happy without money, that we seem to never have enough. Material items that are only temporarily. We leave the world with nothing but our good deeds and our memories, drugs and alcohol, and other addictions. Other people? Do you enjoy your own company? Could you survive on your own? How much do you consume yourself in others? Are you a people pleaser?
The post kept going with, quote, today, I begin preparing myself for the next step on my spiritual journey. Who would have thought I'd become a minimalist? Yes, my friends, you heard correctly. In a world full of consumers of flashy things and all the fancy things that bring us a temporarily happiness, only to soon lose interest and soon we're online shopping once again. I'm trying the 33 item challenge. And I mean, it makes sense. I'm 33 years of age, so therefore, for each year of my life, I reward myself one item. That includes shoes, clothes, and accessories, end quote. I'm sorry, that was making my head spin. She kept saying temporarily, and the writing it's very hard to read. It's like a run-on paragraph.
And I have a question. Is she saying she's going to buy herself 33 pieces of material because she's 33 years old?
I think it's a challenge, but she's like, oh, how fitting. I'm 33.
So I'm going to buy myself 33 gifts.
No, like she can only have 33 items. So it's
she's got to get rid of everything.
Yeah. And you can have like one shoe would equal one. So it'd be like, okay, I can have 2 shoes. I can have a dress. And it's just so unrealistic for someone who we've seen doing what she does and that's what makes this so hard to understand. It was like she was directing it at others, but I think she's on this new spiritual journey, a minimalist as she calls it, and that she's really asking herself all those things.
Right.
It's a little strange. I don't know if there's substances involved at this point because the posts get even more confusing on her feed. There's things about the Hebrew Bible, a lot of Judaism symbols, Aurora Borealis, Sphinx, and a lot of these are posted the same day. There would be 10 posts on her feed with no context whatsoever. And all I want you to do right now is think about that. Just think about a person, I don't know, sitting in their bedroom, in their living room, and making the intentional effort to search these photos and post them. It's so confusing.
Her very last Facebook post was on June 26, 2024. It was a picture of Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons from Game of Thrones, sitting on the Iron Throne. By this point, none of her friends were interacting with her posts. They were so out of character for that I think that people probably thought it was somebody else posting.
That's what I was thinking, and then it was just radio silence. No more attention, no more posting at all. Not on Twitter, not on Instagram, and not on Facebook. It's like she went totally off the grid. And the tricky thing about beauty and charisma is that they can hide darkness that you would never expect. What we see on the outside can be very deceiving. Something dark was growing here. Something horrific and violent and chilling was happening to Tamika, and it would soon reveal itself and shatter the peace of a quiet coastal town and reveal a truth uglier and far deadlier than anyone could have imagined, especially from someone thought to be as beautiful as she was. And this is a story that proves you can never really know what's behind the mask.
That small coastal town is called Port Lincoln. Picture a beautiful beach, cozy little cafes, and friendly neighbors. It's the kind of place where people grow up together and everyone knows everyone else. Think of those quaint beach towns you visited on vacation, the ones where the biggest crime might be someone accidentally backing into your mailbox. That's Port Lincoln. It's safe, it's peaceful, and it's familiar.
And in a town like this, people tend to feel secure. They let their guard down. They believe bad things only happen somewhere else, far away in big cities with flashing lights and constant sirens. But not here. Never here. But that sense of safety can sometimes make tragedy hit twice as hard. By 2025, this is where 34-year-old Tamika Chesser called home. She and her 38-year-old boyfriend, Julian Story, had moved in together to an apartment on Flinders Highway. It's the main through road in the middle of this beach town.
Julian, at 38 years old, had spent nearly his whole life in this community. He was the opposite of Tamika, or at least the Tamika that everyone else is used to. He wasn't the type to seek fame or attention. He was private, modest. He was the kind of guy that would give you a friendly wave from across the street, or maybe a quick exchange at a local grocery store. His family was deeply respected. His mother was a dedicated community volunteer, and Julian himself was well liked, but he preferred to keep the details of his life quiet and away from prying eyes.
We don't know how Julian and Tamika crossed paths, but they're both good-looking people around the same age, living in Australia, and somehow they connected and the relationship got more serious. Opposites do attract, or so they say. Small town charm meets big city glamour, and on paper, it's intriguing, maybe even kind of sweet. But real life isn't like the movies. And beneath the surface, something dark was brewing. Tamika kept a low profile. She would occasionally post things on Snapchat. So she was still using Snapchat, but we know that that disappears. But some of those images would suggest she was normal, she was happy. Nothing hinted at the darkness beneath it. Or did it? Because y'all remember the infamous Britney Spears meltdown where she shaved her head herself at a salon in Tarzana, California, while cameras snapped every moment?
And those moments become hugely significant in pop culture history. In Britney's memoir, The Woman in Me, she explained that shaving her head was her way of pushing back against the intense scrutiny and pressure she faced as a young, popular celebrity. Pressures that included relentless paparazzi harassment and the breakdown of her marriage to Kevin Federline.
Tamika shaved her head in 2025. Why? Well, similarly, from what we can tell from her posts, she was someone that was in the spotlight from the time that she was born, and that invites that intense scrutiny and pressure. But in Britney's memoir, she mentioned she was also doing substances at the time, and I think that that will be important going forward. I think it's safe to say that it is a possibility here, especially with what happens next. But here's what Britney said in her memoir about why she did it.
With my head shaved, everyone was scared of me, even my mom. No one would talk to me anymore because I was too ugly. My long hair was a big part of what people liked. I knew that. I knew a lot of guys thought long hair was hot. Shaving my head was a way of saying to the world, you. You want me to be pretty for you? You. You want me to be good for you? You. You want me to be your dream girl? You. I'd been the good girl for years. I'd smiled politely while TV show hosts leered at my breath, while American parents said I was destroying their children by wearing a crop top, while executives patted my hand condescendingly and second-guessed my career choices even though I'd sold millions of records, and I was tired of it.
Wow. So yes, rebellion, especially when it comes to being the object of someone's desire. So maybe Tamika felt the same way, shed off that part of her, love her for her. I even noticed Britney had the same Jewish star, also known as the Star of David charm around her neck. We're going to show it here in the screen cap of that night when she shaved her head. And Tamika had posted that same image multiple times on Facebook. I do not know the relevance here. I just noticed a connection and I'm talking about it. I'm not very well versed in other religions. I don't know what these things mean. I just thought it was interesting that both Britney had that symbolism on her body and Tamika had been posting about it. If you know and you have more insight, comment below and let us know. But just 1 year after she started repeatedly, incessantly posting those graphics, those ethereal things, the spiritual things on her Facebook, things turned dark.
On June 16th, 2025, Julian turned 39. I'm sure he had no idea that this would be his last birthday, because within hours, everything would fall apart inside of Unit 3 on Flinders Highway. But let's jump ahead a few days to June 19th at around 3:30 p.m. when a neighbor and friend of Julian's, Jordan Ware, noticed smoke coming from Unit 3 of the house complex on Flinders Highway, where the couple lived. So Jordan went to check on the unit, and that's when he saw Tamika inside. The smoke alarms were blaring, so he asked her what was going on, and her answer was simply nothing. Then she walked out the back door and left with her dogs.
Clearly, Jordan was worried. He feared that there was a house fire in Unit 3 that could spread to other units, including his own. So he intervened by entering their unit through the back door with buckets of water. He went into the bathroom where he discovered a smoldering bundle of rags, clothing, and debris, which he then doused with water, extinguishing a small fire that had been set inside. Meanwhile, help was already on the way. And when firefighters made their way into that bathroom, they didn't just find burned rags and clothing. They found Julian Daniel Story and what was left of him. He had been cut up with body parts partially burned and was missing his head. That is terrifying. So let's listen to this neighbor Jordan describe what he experienced.
I asked her when the smoke alarm started going off and stuff, and she reckons everything's okay. I just thought it was a fire, so I didn't know what was going on. And then as soon as the major crime squad come, they let me know that there was a dead body in the house.
I mean, can you imagine thinking it's rags, but it's your friend's body?
No.
That's disturbing.
And this whole case is disturbing and it's shocking. The authorities were looking around for clues, and that's when they see Tamika out in the garden, just sitting in a chair. What a juxtaposition between when she was sitting in that chair out in the garden of that mansion on Beauty and the Geek, and now unresponsive in her backyard.
She was okay. She was alive. She was present, but she wasn't all there. They said that she was catatonic.
And they were using the psychological definition of catatonic. Individuals may become immobile. They can resist attempts to move them. They might stare for long periods of time and stop speaking. That was Tamika.
She was immediately taken into custody from the scene.
Now, this could be a symptom of mental health conditions like schizophrenia or even bipolar disorder during a manic episode. And I even read it could be major depressive disorder, but it can also be a symptom of substance use.
Since she was the only other person living in the unit with the now deceased Julian, and she was exhibiting strange behavior like walking out with a fire as it was burning in the bathroom, she was immediately considered a suspect. Investigators began digging into her background, trying to figure out who she was and what could have happened inside of Unit 3.
That's when they start to uncover really erratic behavior in the weeks that were leading up to this. People start coming forward with videos. There was this one of her out in the middle of the ocean just screaming and putting her arms out to the sides. There was another one of her out at a restaurant on the patio. She was wearing this long dark-haired wig with a hat. And then out of nowhere, she pulls it off her head. She shows her bald head and she's just screaming. Wow. That was terrifying. Can you imagine if you were there?
Imagine if you had a kid there.
It's just, and then there's another one of her at a club, again, shaved head, dancing all by herself. The dance floor is empty. It just seems like she is in her own world.
I mean, maybe to some it looks like she's having a good time.
I was thinking that, or because TikTok is so prevalent now, people do weird things for attention.
Totally.
So a lot of times people won't even care. They'll just be like, oh, it's another weird person doing like a trend.
Another influencer in the wild.
Right.
After her arrest, Tamika was taken to James Nash House, a secure psychiatric hospital in Adelaide. Investigators then pulled up Ring camera and CCTV footage from around the town, which showed Tamika dressed head to toe in black, walking casually with her 3 dogs from the direction of the apartment that she shared with Julian and heading into town. As they kept searching, they found more and more footage of her, this time carrying a gas can to a gas station. Still dressed entirely in black. Honestly, the calm nature that she's just like walking around town after she's committed this murder is unreal. Allegedly committed this murder. And with the timestamps, they realize that the murder probably happened sometime in the middle of the night, possibly around midnight, right after Julian's 39th birthday. So June 17th. But what was the motive? They weren't sure. And at this point, sadly, his head had not been located. Tamika was charged with murder and with interfering with the human remains to pervert the course of justice. And remember when Kimbyr mentioned that Elvis shirt Tamika bought in Vegas would have some significance? Well, at least 3 items, an Elvis t-shirt, a drink bottle, and a wristband were found near the town cemetery.
And all 3 of those items were turned over for testing. There were so many questions, but what was clear was that after allegedly taking Julian's life, Tamika didn't call for help. She didn't run. Instead, she remained inside that apartment as if nothing had happened. One life had just ended violently and the other just carried on. And Tamika didn't just stay silent. She began to do something unthinkable. Over the next 2 days, Julian's body was taken apart piece by piece. Think about that. Because I don't think we stop and think about the mindset, the emotional detachment someone has to have, and the sheer terror that it requires to commit something so grotesque.
Man, like what tools was she using?
We don't know yet. It's impossible to even think that somebody that says they love someone, lived with them, close to them could do something like this.
Authorities believe Tamika made multiple attempts to conceal what she'd done, slowly cutting up and then disposing of evidence as she moved in and out of the unit and into town. Since she didn't drive, she had to get rid of the remains on foot. Those 36 hours between midnight on June 17th and the afternoon of June 19th are like a black hole. No emergency calls, no noise complaints, and no sightings from any other neighbors.
Police would spend days searching, scouring the coastlines, the bushland, the streets, and the dumpsters for Julian's head. Divers checked waterways, search parties combed through the brush and the scrubland, and initially they found nothing. Meanwhile, this tight-knit community started to hear whispers of what happened. Rumors were spreading quickly through Port Lincoln. Julian, someone they'd known, someone they trusted, had been horrifically murdered. And the suspect? That beautiful woman who once smiled from the TV screens, who had walked among them unnoticed and seemed unimaginable. His family had to read the most horrific headlines, things like, "Where's his head?" And it's understandable that was the lingering question, but this is a human being. It's someone's child. And Julian's parents were, of course, devastated.
Investigators struggled to find clues about motive. Do you think Julian and Tamika had a fight? Was it jealousy? Was it anger? Was it betrayal? Authorities even admitted publicly that there was no clear or obvious motive. Imagine how unsettling that must have been for Julian's family.
Yeah, knowing their loved one was taken so brutally, but having no idea why.
Was it something deeply personal or just a horrifying act of pure randomness?
I kept thinking of other similar cases, and Taylor Schabusiness came to mind. She did something like this, and she was highly addicted to meth at the time.
Right.
Yeah, she was hanging out with that friend of hers. They knew each other for a very long time. And I think most of you know what happened. So it's possible that Tamika was going through something similar. But the thing is, Taylor's behavior after what she did was really obviously unstable. Mm-hmm. And here we're seeing Tamika, and she's not being that weird in the aftermath. It's like she's calmly walking around. She's not having a crazy outburst. That was before. She's just disposing of evidence with her puppies by her side.
By June 27th, just 10 days after the murder, Tamika made her first court appearance, appearing via video. Later photos surfaced of her in what looked like a hospital bed, though no one knows if that was where she appeared from during the hearing or if it was simply a recent picture taken of her at the psychiatric hospital. Then a press conference was held by Detective Superintendent Darren Felk, officer in charge of the Major Crime Investigation Section. He said, quote, "We know that after his alleged murder, Julian's body was dismembered, and while I won't provide any further details about that at this time, I can tragically say that we have not recovered the head of Julian Story." He went on to add, "I can only imagine the grief this news is causing Julian's family. It is crucial that we locate Julian's head so that his family has the opportunity to lay him to rest."
He let the public know that he was asking people who knew this couple to come forward and to review their ring, their CCTV, their dash cam footage, because it could aid in the investigation. Now, specifically, they wanted from midnight on June 17th to the afternoon of June 19th. He also explained that Tamika had only recently moved to that area, and Julian's family also made a statement to the police. And they said they were grateful to emergency services for their assistance and to the broader community. And they said, quote, We are navigating an unimaginable loss, and your care has brought comfort amid the chaos. We are also deeply grateful to our family and friends and this extraordinary community whose kindness and support have helped carry us through. Your prayers, presence, and quiet strength mean more than words can say." End quote. Wow. They have to be really strong people. I can't even imagine being able to think, let alone make a statement.
And more information about Julian was being released at this time. They said that he was a talented musician who loved animals and had grown up on a farm. But even then, they still hadn't interviewed Tamika. Police explained that they couldn't have contact with her because she was still unresponsive. But by June 30th, someone was talking, Tamika's sister, Kaya Mae Chesser. She wanted to remain anonymous, so they blurred her face, and she spoke exclusively to 9 News. She confirmed that the woman in the CCTV footage was her sister, but said, quote, "That's not the Tamika we know," adding that her mental health had been in decline. However, Tamika hadn't shared anything specific with them, only that she loved them all.
It's my sister, but that's not who she is, or the Tamika we know. Just started getting worse, and she started being in and out of mental health. If she didn't mention anything, and she just told everyone that she loves them.
I cannot imagine seeing my loved one and knowing what they have done or allegedly done, and that there were signs, but not being able to stop it. Her sister was adamant that this was not Tamika, that she would never do these things, that she was in a mental psychosis, stating that Tamika had a life of trauma and abuse, and now this had fried her brain. She explained that she and Julian had only been together a few months, and that Tamika called her on the 10th of June, so just a week before the murder, and she was asking her to please come save her animals, because one of them had gone to the bathroom on the floor. So she was being very dramatic about something very small. So that was unusual. Her sister also said that Julian was a drug cook and not in a good mind space himself. In their short time together, she said that Tamika would be on the phone with her while Julian was going off in the background. She said there is more to this story. Apparently, both were known to police. Julian had recent charges for shoplifting and disorderly behavior in the past, and he had been charged for damage to a building or a car and a DUI that was tied to cannabis use.
Harry Side, the owner of the gas station where Tamika was caught on CCTV, said that Julian was a regular shoplifter and that both he and Tamika were well known there, while both appearing to be troubled. He claimed that Julian had stolen from the station more than 10 times.
Yeah, that's significant, and they're well known there for that reason. Also, this is when I noticed that Tamika's outfit almost looked like a hijab. I mean, it could be her disguise, but it could be something more. It could be part of that spiritual transformation. Everything, though, from the odd shoes to the tights, it just looked like things that she would have to specifically buy, either part of her new look or because she planned this alleged crime, or both. And Reddit was buzzing with theories, of course, and it turned to meth.
One comment read, quote, "Port Lincoln is known for its meth problem, South Australia in general, but I grew up in Lincoln and half my classmates ended up on the gear. Usually they start due to boredom of living in a small town." Another Reddit comment said, quote, "I have some mates from Port Lincoln. There is a video from a few months ago where she was standing near the highway in Port Lincoln wearing a white hijab-style face covering and similar style of body covering, except she had ripped the fabric so that her breasts were completely exposed. Sounds like she has been struggling with declining mental health and increasing drug usage," end quote.
So the head covering, as I was saying, was not just to disguise herself. It was part of another new identity, her spiritual journey. But what I read was that she did go to Port Lincoln War Memorial in the center of town, and she posed topless next to a monument that had the inscription, "Lest we forget." The thing is, Tamika isn't the only Beauty and Geek contestant whose life spiraled out of control after the show ended. Another young woman, Jordan Finlayson, was on the show in 2011, and she told reporters that she had some incredible years dancing, cheerleading, and modeling and traveling, working in Ibiza. But eventually, she spiraled and made some really bad decisions and said, quote, I'm not blaming the show for my actions, but I do believe the experience contributed massively to my mental health struggles, which eventually led me to self-medicate, end quote. She said she tried to get help, but she was too paranoid. She said, quote, there's definitely a grieving period, not just for the attention, but for the version of yourself you thought you'd get to keep being. I remember seeing a counselor, and the first thing she said to me was, you're that girl from Beauty and the Geek, end quote. Wow. So like we said, the identity crisis.
Jordan explained that she got heavily into substances and toxic relationships, and that the contract they all signed to be on the show forbids them from talking about what happened to them on the show and to them afterward.
For 10 years.
Right, so she was left to deal with it all alone.
It blows my mind that someone would sign that for 10 years, but you're young and you just want to be on the show so bad.
And she said that adjusting back to normal life isn't just hard, it was crushing. She said, quote, the jobs feel smaller, your inbox is emptier, and your mental health quietly takes a hit. And if you say you're struggling, people think you're being dramatic or ungrateful and tell you you were lucky to be on TV. But they don't see the emotional come down, the loneliness, or the pressure to keep up appearances when you're not okay inside, end quote.
Jordan spent time in jail back in 2020 for substance issues, including meth, and she has 11 convictions related to substance use on her record. And it makes perfect sense. We said this, and it's her now pouring out all of these things that happened now that she is allowed to talk about them. And feeling like you have no one to relate to is also very difficult. And I could also see people saying that, like, what are you, like, ungrateful? You were on TV, and they don't get it. Like, Hollywood is a curse in a lot of ways. At this point, police poured their energy into locating Julian's head. For weeks, search crews, including divers and specially trained volunteers, scoured Port Lincoln's beaches, bushland, and neighborhood day in and day out. They meticulously examined every piece of ground, every hidden crevice, desperate for closure. And then came July 31st of 2025, a day that would finally bring a major breakthrough in the case. Several kilometers from Julian and Tamika's home, on the outskirts of town, a local resident, Tyson McCollum, a dog walker, was on his usual route near an area called Slipway Scrub with his dog Benji, when all of a sudden, Benji ran into the brush and would not come out when he was called. That was odd. Tyson went a bit closer to where his dog was sniffing and sniffing around, and he made the connection as to what was there.
Pretty quickly, he realized that it was Julian's head.
That is so sad.
The remains were found charred in the brush just off the coast near the Parncala walking trail. Police immediately set a perimeter with crime scene tape around the area where the small fire had been set. While forensic testing still had to be done, they were certain it was Julian. At this point, the magistrate denied Tamika bail, keeping her in custody, and scheduled her next court date for December of this year.
Yeah, so this is coming. This is happening. And here's a scary thought. Right now, as you're hearing this, someone you know, maybe even someone you trust, they could be hiding something like this. We walk through life, we assuming that we can spot danger, believing that we'll know how close it is to us and that we'll know who is capable of real harm. But here is the harsh truth. Sometimes evil doesn't just announce itself, it smiles, it laughs, it can even charm you. So how do you know what's really going on behind all of that? This case brings to light mental health, the price of fame sometimes, and we see it time and time again. Celebrities falling into depression, mental health spirals, or worse.
So I think it's a good question in the Beauty and the Geek episode when they ask, how does Hollywood affect people?
Not always positively in the end. And I am so sorry for Julian's family. No one's perfect. I'm sure that Julian had his own demons, but this is horrific.
And we hope prosecutors are able to piece together exactly what happened to get justice for Julian and his family. And we'll definitely keep you updated on this case. But if you didn't know, Kimbyr has a Patreon that you can join as a free member if you want to be notified or see updates on cases.
And if you want to see more, there are tiers that you can subscribe to. And we're also going to be adding our content from Darklivity and extras on there as well from us. So if you are interested, we will leave the link below. But we do want to thank you for being here for Julian's story. This is ongoing. It is something new. So let's keep following it, and we will see you in our next video. Bye.